guys, and welcome for the second and in-depth part for my guide of how we should play Fire Staff with Ice Gauntlet, including the critical build and a lot of tricks that many of you might not know or at least not use that much in their games. As there are way too many things to share with you guys, the video might get a little bit longer, but bear in mind that this is an in-depth guide, and of course I cannot summarize everything in just a few minutes. I will however try to be as clean and as fast as possible so I can point out the most important things for this build to work. Also, I will include the different playstyles that you can use depending on what abilities you are taking for your secondary, which is the Ice Gauntlet. So let's not waste more time and just take a fast look on the build and the items that I'm using for this build. As a hat, I have Resilient, Elemental Aversion and Pillar of Fire. The chest is again same perks but with Fireball. For gloves, same perks with Deadly Frost. Then we have Shirking Energy, Elemental Aversion, Resilient, and last but not least, Resilient, Refreshing, and Physical Aversion. For jewelries, I have an amulet with Trust Protection, Health, and Refreshing, Champion's Ring for the best critical chances, and then we have Refreshing, Refreshing Toast, and Purifying Toast. For weapons, I'm using Keen, Vicious, Keenly Empowered on the Fire Staff, and I'm using Unending Toe, Refreshing Move, and Enchanted for the Ice Gauntlet. However, in different cases and different scenarios, you can pick and choose and change some of the perks. For example, you can change Refreshing to some of the perks that you think that you don't really need, or you can change different amulets for gaining more empower overall. However, on wars, most definitely you want to replace your Purifying Toast with Focused, just because you need to free yourself a slot in the hotbar from the mana potions, so you can use either Gemstone Dust, Oak Flesh Balm, or the fire protecting potions. Now let's take a quick look over the skill trees of both weapons, starting with the Fire Staff, which is our main source of damage and our main weapon in this build. This is the standard build that I'm using in any case, regardless what type of PvP I'm playing, even that being arena, OPR or a war. If I have to be an assassin, point player or just a flex, this is the build that I'm using for the Fire Staff. For the Ice Gauntlet, however, there are different variations depending on what you want to achieve with it and where exactly you're gonna place yourself in the battlefield. If you're gonna go for control style of Ice Gauntlet, you would want to go with the Ice Shower, Ice Storm and Entomb. If you want to apply even more pressure to enemies' backlines, or you want to be a menace for everyone that's around you, you have to go with the Pylon. The Pylon will give you not only bonus damage, but it will also make sure that if you get chased by other assassins, it will kind of disturb their attacking patterns, as the Pylon will pick some of the hits that might actually save you to run away. The skill trees can be different and you can use them in many different situations. The same goes for the attributes as well. If you feel that you have a really solid front line and you don't have that many assassins on the enemy side, you can go for lower con attributes, even going down to 100. However, what I suggest you to go to is 150, as you would get the 10% reduced critical damage taken. This is the sweet spot between 100 and 200, because you would still have high enough damage to kill people with a short burst of combo, or you would be able to survive enemies' attacks or maybe assassins that are trying to kill you. It doesn't matter which type of playstyle you're gonna choose or which skill tree you're gonna go for with the Fire and Ice. The most important thing for this build is the placement and the positioning in the fights. As you may know, Fire and Ice doesn't have the same range as the bow and the musket, which means that you need to find the sweet spot between playing closer to ranged but also closer to the enemy melees. Of course, this always gives you some benefits and some negatives, and as you can see on the clip on the back, if you play on the higher point, you would have easy time hitting targets with all your abilities. However, if you change sides with them, it would be a little bit difficult to hit most of your abilities to an elevated person. That's why the positioning for a Fire Staff and Ice Gauntlet player should be really on point in order to achieve good results. Also, something in addition to the positioning is the awareness of a player to the surroundings and the current situation of the game, being that be arena, OPR, or a war. You should be aware of what is happening around you all the time, so you can take, of course, the best choice to come in the next step that you take. If you have a clear understanding of how the game progresses, and when you have a positive or a negative ratio of players around you, you can always make the right choice to step forward or just step backwards and wait for the backup. Most of the players believe that Fire Staff, Bow and Musket have way too high damage compared to the rest. However, that's not actually true, because the damage is almost equal, but what those weapons lack is the control. Control of crowd control abilities or any other source that can give you free territory. That's why for those three weapons and classes you really need to play with your front line. If you don't have a front line, you would not actually reach a 50% of what you are capable to do with a good front line. In general, there are two playstyles for the Fire Staff and Ice Gauntlet player. The first one could be the point player or a normal Fire Staff stat padder, as it's more common to say. This means that you are playing behind your front line, trying to hit clumps with your AoE damage and build up a lot of kills or potential damage to all the enemies that are stuck with your front line. The other playstyle that you can go for is the type of an assassin. This, however, it's a little bit better to be played with a blunderbuss due to the net shot bonuses. Of course, it could be played with an ice as well, as you have a root, and it's most of the times combined with a spear player or someone who have a really good CC on single targets. Then you would be looking to reach and attack the enemy's backlines, which contain other fire mages, bow players, musket players, and of course healers, which should be your main priority. The easier out of the two playstyles, of course, is the one that you play with your group, or the one that is called the stat padder. Of course, whenever you have your teammates in front of you to take the aggro or the damage incoming from the enemies, it would be a little bit better and easier for you to kinda get to understand the build and of course to see the flaws and the weaknesses of it. If you play the assassin build and you don't really have a deeper understanding of your abilities or capabilities and the maximum potential that you can reach, you would face yourself with a higher task that you can chew, and then you would face some issues. I suggest any new player to try and play as safe as possible, even going with 200 con, just so they can fill up the weapon and of course to see the playstyle. Since this could be a topic for over than 1 hour talk about the playstyle and how you should exactly play it, it cannot be always set the same to the different situations and of course the different opponents. That's why I suggest you to just go and check out the stream, and then you would see how I personally play it. Now, what I want to share with you guys, and this will be our next part of the video, is the different tricks and tips that you can use in your games or you can try out if you didn't know them before that. One of the most important things that you need to know as a Fire Staff player is your burnout. This is the only tool that can lead you to freedom and safety, and of course the only tool that you can reach someone or chase someone in order to get him killed. That's why it's really crucial and important to know exactly what you can do with your burnout. Your burnout is an ability that travels forward, but it can be curved to left or right depending on where you flick your mouse. However, you can also cut some terrain that usually you should run through by just flying over it. That's why it's really important to know on which places or which shortcuts you can take so you can gain positional advantage over your enemies. This can also serve as a surprise attack to some of the enemies if you combine your burnout with a detonation and then of course explosion. Also, a good note for the burnout is that it can be cancelled by a dodge as long as you have stamina available. If you see yourself in trouble or getting hit by an CC in the following second after starting your cast of burnout, you should use your dodge ability in order to cancel the animation of it. You can do that even super late of the animation of the burnout, so you can make sure that you don't get crowd controlled and then follow up by a chain CC. However, be careful, because if you go on gray bar and then not being able to use your burnout, most likely you will end up dead. As we are talking about fire staff tricks, we're gonna go over the fireball and the pillar as well. For example, with the fireball you can cast the ability and then flick if you think that the enemy will dodge or you already see the enemy dodging to the left or right direction. This means that you can flick instantly after casting the ability and choose another trajectory for the ability to hit. The same can be applied to the pillar, because after the click of the pillar it doesn't necessarily need to be followed by your camera. This means that if you trigger the pillar you can turn 180 and continue moving if you are sure that you already hit your target. Those flicks can be applied to the combo that usually it's used by a fire staff users, which contains a heavy attack and then follow up straight fireball or a pillar depending on the enemy's HP. For example, the best combo that you can use on target that is lower than half HP is heavy attack and pillar. If the target is still full HP, the best combo would be heavy attack fireball. In the clip on the back you can see how I instantly shoot my fireball to the trajectory that I think the enemy will dodge, or I see him dodging already. Therefore, he is not able to dodge both of the abilities, and in the best case scenario he would get hit by both of them if he is not good on his timings. The last thing that I want to share with you guys today is the trick with the pillar of fire. However, it's more of a tip instead of a trick, because most of you might know this, but I see a lot of people doing it. Even I myself do it a lot and make a mistake with it. This is regarding the pillar trying to get hit a target elevated from us or being, higher ground than us. Due to the fact that we cannot see the ground and we cannot place the ability where we want to, the ability goes on the maximum range straight away. This means that if we are closer to the target, the pillar will go over the target and it will completely pass the hitbox. That's why it's always better to either hit the targets only on max range or just don't waste your ability at all. This applies to both Pillar of Fire and Ice Storm, so make sure that you don't waste your abilities for no reason. And now, since we mentioned the Ice Gauntlet, let's go over a few of the tricks for the Ice Gauntlet and its abilities. The first one that we're gonna talk about is the shower. As I said, shower is one of your best friends in order to survive tough situations, and not only for you but also for your teammates if it's used properly. That's why it's best to know how to use the shower and gain the maximum advantage that it can give you. The first trick I'm gonna show you is how to place shower all around you so you can gain more territory control with it instead of the just line in front if it's used by default. The second trick with the shower would be the one that it's causing the chasing enemies the back to hit it almost instantly if it's placed correctly. This is whenever you use the shower, you need to aim yourself at 90 degrees towards your enemies, so the right side of the casting animation would almost hit them instantly. Always make sure that you play around your shower, due to the fact that the shower remains for 7 seconds active. Even if it cannot root the enemy twice, it's still something to bear in mind, and they cannot really just ignore it. One last thing to mention about the shower before going to the ice storm is that shower should always be used before a storm if you want to use both abilities together. Make sure that you always use your shower before the storm, because there is a potential bug that is causing your animations to get locked. This means that you would not be able to use your shower instantly after a storm, and you would be standing there for a second or even close to two without doing anything. The only way to prevent that is if you cast your storm and then instantly dodge to use the shower right after. Without the dodge, you would be locked and you most likely will receive some hits. For the ice storm, there is not much to be said apart from the things which are already known to everyone. This is that the ice storm provides a huge slow for enemies that are trying to approach you, and on the other hand, if you are using your ice gauntlet and you have the correct perks, you would gain movement speed inside the storm. That's why it's really crucial where we're gonna place the storm and how we're gonna utilize that. Last but not least, the Entomb ability, which looks pretty simple at first, can be also used to gain some advantages. First and most important thing is, whenever you enter Entomb, you're gonna cleanse everything that you have on you as a debuff. That's why it's really important to make sure that you combine that with your cleansing potions if you are playing a war. It's not really helpful if you use both things together, as you are just wasting their cooldowns for nothing. Second important thing is, whenever you enter Entomb, you should always exit Entomb before it loses its HP. The reason for that is because when you click a left mouse button, or let's say you trigger the Entomb explosion, you would deal damage to the surrounding enemies, but you would also get a little bit of fortify for the duration of few seconds after. And with that, I think it's safe to say that we covered most of the basic tricks for a Firestaff player. Of course, if you already knew those tricks or you want to learn more of those, please let me know in the comment section below. Also, I would like to invite you guys to my Discord server where we can discuss all things related to New World, PvP, PvE, or even future potential expansions. Make sure that you follow me on Kick, where I'm streaming, and we can have a discussion there as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one.